What's going on, guys? Chuck here, coming at you with another 3D classic. And this one actually really is a classic. Probably of the films I've done thus far, this is probably one of the big ones to this point. And that is from Universal Studios 1954's Creature from the Black Lagoon, one of the famed Universal monsters. And actually, the last of the great Universal monsters. This is basically the end of the cycle, is the last creature that came out, after Dracula, the Mummy, Frankenstein, the Wolfman. This was the last gasp in the 50s, where the classic, the older classic monsters had pretty much kind of died out by this point, and this was, like I said, the last gasp of the monster movies before we're starting to go into the atomic age of film, if you will, and going into sci-fi. Actually, it's probably right in that cusp, because just not prior to this, I believe, was Universal's "It Came from Outer Space," which has a lot of connections to this film. We'll get to in a minute. So yeah, the times are changing, if you will, and the landscape, the gothic monster movies and the horror films are kind of starting to die down. We're getting to the atomic age. We're about invaders from space, mutated monsters, whatever. This was like the creatures, the last gasp of that golden era of the Universal monsters, and it's a good one. So, okay. This is Universal's, like, 1954. This is, like I said, not long after. They just released the first big studio 3D film, which we covered last time, which was It Came from Outer Space. Funny enough, that because of that, they got Jack Arnold, who was the director of that, to direct this film as well. And we're going to put it in 3D also. It also brings back from It Came from Outer Space. Was it Richard Carlson, who was leading that film? He came in to play the lead in this one. It was Dr. David Reed. I guess Richard Carlson was known as, or did a lot of these big scientist doctor types at this time. It kind of became his thing, and he just, he was the good, upstanding scientist. You also have Julia Adams. I think was Julia Adams, but she was being credited as Julia Adams at the time, as Kay Lawrence, the love interest, if you will, and Richard Denning as Dr. Mark Williams, and he is basically, the other scientist of the film, but he's the guy who just, he's, in essence, kind of the bad guy, if you will. So, for those who don't know, Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's, the story is basically the scientists find this fossilized hand, or appendage, if you will. I'm saying "if you will" a lot. They find this fossilized appendage, which tells them that there was some other, life, this, missing link, and they try and figure out, find more of the skeleton. They go to the two Richards, the actors, and basically say, here's this find. We maybe need to find more, or you find out where the rest of this fossil come from. Maybe can you give us answers to, the mysteries of man, and all the usual stuff. So they go to the Amazon, and they basically come across the creature from the Black Lagoon, and that's it in a nutshell. It's scientists trying to make a discovery, finding something that's undescribable, or unbelievable, and they have the one guy who wants to study it, learn from it, and then the one guy who likes to bring it home. No one's going to believe this. We need to capture this at all costs. We got to have it. We got to basically be superior over it. I need to have proof that I got this, and that's basically the Dr. Mark Williams character. He's the boss of all this, but he's just intent on having this fine and being the guy that discovers this, and everyone's got to believe him at all costs. He's going to get this creature at all costs, no matter what. Well, Richard Carlson's character, Dr. David Reed, I have to keep looking, I can't remember the names, is basically trying to tell him, no, we can't do this, you're wrong. And that's, in essence, again, this is man coming in and intruding on someone else's territory, and trying to take over and take as you will, and take what you will from that in any kind of context. But that's the gist of it. And of course, you have the creature who his more or less his territory is being invaded, so he's trying to, and I think looking back, you probably wouldn't look at it that time frame as he's defending it as basically he's just a creature, he's scary, he's attacking us. But you're looking at it in present day, and you realize that he's basically just defending himself. He's, these people are, like I said, invaders in his area. And of course, of all this, as most creatures do in these movies, they fall in love with a beautiful woman. In that case, being Kay Parker's Julie Adams. And for whatever reason in this time, the monsters, going back to King Kong, these monsters just, they find beautiful women and they got to have these strange other species women. And it's, and I understand being crazy over a beautiful woman. God knows it's happened to me plenty of times. So, there's that. And that's, it's really a simple story. I'm not doing it justice, let's be honest. It's a classic. It spawned 2 other films. The Revenge of the Creature, which also is shot in 3D, and it's one I'll probably talk about, in the future. And then the final one, The Creature Walks Among Us, which is probably the weakest of the 2, or the 3, excuse me. But the Gill Man is a classic monster. He's been seen everywhere. He's instantly recognizable, even if you've never seen the movies. And frankly, I hadn't seen The Creature, Black Lagoon, until probably my adult years. But I was well aware of the creature. Reading books, you see the image. If you've seen something like Monster Squad, he's Saturday the 14th. There's references to the creature and so many things. Heck, one of the Academy Awards for Best Picture a few years back, The Shape of Water, more or less is a creature from the Black Lagoon story. I mean, that creature, Guillermo del Toro, his creature is essentially the creature from the Black Lagoon. It's clearly what this is, or what that film is implying, the love, and just taking that love interest of the creature for the woman a few steps further, actually a lot of steps further. You've seen the movie. You can also see the creature influence in so many other films. I mean, they talk about it in the documentary. Without the creature, you don't get a lot of the monster movies that would pave the way for, certain creatures like Alien, Predator, this is the elaborate kind of creature design and things like that. But it's definitely, you see its influence heavily in a film like Jaws. The opening scene of Jaws with, the woman swimming and the moonlight swinging around the silhouette. I mean, that is obviously an echo to Creature from the Black Lagoon. You look at the scene where Julie Adams is, going into the swim, and you see the creature looking at it. It's a very iconic moment, a very scene. The silhouette swimming, and the creature looking at her from below, and they kind of do this, synchronized swim together, which is, it's interesting. It's been compared to, and some people have talked about it. It's almost like a non-traditional love scene, if you will, between the creature and the woman. But you also have scenes where, Julie's, where the creature's kind of reaching for her feet and scraping at it, and she's treading water, and like the shots echo the shots in Jaws, or I should say vice versa. The shot from Jaws echoes Creature, where was it Christy, I think her name was, in the beginning of Jaws, where she's treading water, then obviously she's getting that pulling before she gets pulled under. But that's kind of, you see that in Creature with that scene where like he's reaching out, he's trying to grab her foot, he's reaching for it, and he can feel she's kind of, what is that? It doesn't go that far, but again, these influences are clearly there if you've seen them. As for the film, for its time, I could see, the terror that you would get from this film. Taking to a 1954 standpoint, the creature is terrifying. There's a scene where he stalks, this, I don't know what they were like the scientist assistants on a in a tent. They're camping out, waiting for the scientists probably to arrive, and he comes in and attacks them. And it's a witch shot. It's very terrifying, and especially the tease of the creature, because all you see are his hands for the beginning, just creeping up here and there out of the water, and you see bubbles, and then of course you get the quick glimpse of him underwater, and it's startling, and this, he's coming at you. I can really see that this could be a terrifying thing for a person or in 1954, because you watch it, it's shot very well. It's giving you that menace, and it's rather intense. And also you've got a great musical score, which is headlined by the familiar theme, which, for better or for worse, plays throughout almost too much. Every moment you have the theme of the creature, the dun 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 dun. Yeah, it's just even the point where the Revenge of the Creature was shown on Mystery Science Theater, and I think they made a comment about that music playing every time you would see the creature. But that's basically what happens. It's like dun, dun, dun. It's like Jaws again, where the John Williams score in the original Jaws only plays when the shark is there. It's never like a tease. If you watch the movie, if you pay attention, anytime there's like you're teasing you like the shark might be there. If the score's not there, the shark's not there. That's kind of what's going on with Creature for the most part. Although in every case he's always there, but dun dun dun. Oh, here comes a creature. There's a creature. He's coming at you, and he's in 3D, and it's dun dun dun. It's but it's very overpowering. It's a good score. It definitely sticks with you, but after a while, it's like, whoa, slow it down. It's a little too much, but they're getting the point across. As for this film and the 3D, let me back up. Sorry, back up. One of the things to talk about. The film, again, it was done after it came from outer space, which was the first big studio 3D film. This was the first underwater 3D film, and Universal was, handling that as well. And you've got great underwater scenes, just without question. It's the cinematography underwater is fantastic. It gives you a great feel, and seeing the creature underwater, swimming and doing his thing, is a testament to Rico Browning, who was the performer in the suit underwater. Ben Chapman played the creature on land, so you had two different people playing the creature, but it was Rico Browning, and I think he would go on to do a lot of stuff in film that involved underwater sequences, and I think he just recently passed away a few years ago. He's probably the last remaining person from this film that was still alive. Either him or Julie Adams, one of the two. But yeah, the underwater sequences are done very well for the time. They're very immersive. You just feel that the I don't know, the mysteriousness of this of this underwater lagoon, I guess, or whatever, the Amazon, and just the sound of it, with the creatures, you hear all the the jungle animals, whatever it is, you hear the Amazon. It really puts you in a sense of they're somewhere in a wild unknown, and who knows what we're about to discover, what's under the water. For a film that was shot mostly in studio for a lot of scenes, and then partially in Florida, it blends really well. All the scenes in Amazon are done very well. And back to the creature design, I should also point out that, because I actually learned this watching the special feature behind it, the Back to the Black Lagoon video from Universal, that the design for the creature was actually by a woman named Millicent Patrick. She did all the designs, created the monster or the creature, the whole thing, all the sketches, everything. That was totally her. Of course, Bud Westmore was in charge of makeup. He'd taken over for Jack Pierce at the time, and I think being at that time being head of makeup department, they get all the credit for the designs. And I think a lot of people have misconstrued that Bud Westmore was really the creator of this makeup, when in fact it was this Millicent Patrick. I think that should be known, especially at a time when, prior to Bud Westmore, you had Jack Pierce, who, well, many people tell you he was a genius, a master creator of makeup. He was also, a tyrant. A lot of bad things can be said about, some of how he handled himself or whatever, or how he was with people. But there's no question he was, a genius when it came to makeup. And then Bud Westmore took over. Basically, this is a whole men's thing at the time. But you had this woman come here and do these great designs. I guess she also went on publicity tours at the time too. But somewhere I got lost, and most people consider it Bud Westmore created the creature, when really it was Millicent Patrick. So I want to give credit out for that. Okay. To the disc, the film, which we're here for, the 3D. But first of all, I was impressed. I was surprised that the film, when I showed it or I played it, and I had the old. Let me back up, because this is from the 30 film Classic Monsters complete 30 film collection, which is a great set. I know a lot of these are released in 4K, and I haven't picked them up, mainly because they don't include everything. It's like, one film like this Dracula, or just Frankenstein in 4K, or Creature. Where I love these legacy sets because they include all these films. You've got everything in here, and that's the case with Creature. This has all 3 films, including the first 2 in 3D. Which Creature from Lagoon 4K does have the 3D copy as well, so you can get that. But again, with these other ones, it's why I love this set so much, is to have all these films, the legacies, like I said, in here together. So that's why I haven't upgraded or to use some of the 4Ks, because I just love the set so much. And I think this is pretty, unless they make a 4K of something like this, which everything is out here, which I don't think they will, then I'm going to stick with this because I really like this set a lot. But back to what I was saying, I was surprised because I said I know I've watched this when I had the original DVD legacy sets where they were all individual, and I had the Creature from the Black Lagoon legacy, and I could have sworn I watched it then that it was in the old 1:3:3 standard pillar box, if you will, aspect ratio. And I was surprised when I put this in, and it's a full 1:8:5, so basically full widescreen. I had no idea. I don't recall that DVD having that aspect ratio. And I think I was reading somewhere on the Internet Movie Database trivia, so take that for what you will, and there were 2 aspect ratios for this film. There's the original, the 4:3, or the pillar box, like I said, and then of course the widescreen. And the widescreen is great, and obviously it works better with the 3D. I think you have more of a wider scope, obviously, but It Came from Outer Space was one in the 1:3:3, and its 3D was pretty good. Actually, it's probably better. To be perfectly honest, as good as the Creature looks, and I think it's Jack Arnold does a good job of composing the shots, staging them, and making good use of the widescreen frame. But the 3D, frankly, is a little underwhelming. There's nothing that really sticks out. Even the titles, usually in a 3D film, you're getting big block 3D titles that jump out at you. It Came from Outer Space, no exception. Even Robot Monster, something that's going to get you started right away to just really get out there. Creature doesn't have that. It's just basically a standard title. Now, it looks 3D when you watch it. It does stand out, but it's not like, again, the typical block titles you have, the ones that would really appear to be just jumping out of the screen at you. They're just kind of there. And that's kind of the gist of Creature from Black Lagoon in 3D. It's just kind of there. You don't have any jump out at you moments. And I don't mean just like, blah, scare things, but nothing that really stands out. I think there's like maybe one really that kind of stands out, and it's okay. It's the very beginning when they find that fossilized arm, and it's kind of like right here sticking out at you, and it's whoa, that's kind of 3D. But other than that, you don't really have anything. There's some scenes where the creature he's coming towards the camera and he's breathing, and it's there, but it doesn't really have a good effect. The other only really strong effect I think the 3D works is the underwater scenes. You do have that sense of depth in the underwater scenes, which really helps those shots a lot. Especially there's a scene early on when they're looking at an aquarium, and you see all these fish floating, swimming around. And again, the sense of depth you get on that as they pass by each other, it's really good, and that really jumps out at you. But for the rest of the film, it's the 3D is kind of just non-existent, quite frankly. Like I said, you have some good sense of depth throughout the Amazon jungle, and this is a setting like the jungle is a great, I would think, would be a good showcase for 3D, at least as far as sense of depth, and it does to a certain degree, but for the most part, it's just not really there. Which is a shame because Jack Harlow just came from outer space, and I really thought the shots in that were composed really well. The 3D really stood out, and here it's really not there. It's hit and miss, mostly miss, honestly. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. So it'll be interesting to see how Revenge of the Creature stacks up with this 3D, if especially since Jack Arnold came back for that one too. But as far as the 3D goes, in the original Creature, I'll put it down. My hands getting tired. It was, like I said, rather lackluster. A little disappointing. It was still fun. I mean, the movie's fun either way. So I mean, that's the good thing. You're not, if you don't see it in 3D, you've never seen it in 3D, you're not missing out, because it's not a whole lot that's to be taken differently from it. It's whether it's 3D or flat, it's pretty much the same. So there's that, and but I think if you have the chance to see it in 3D, just for the fact this is how it was originally presented when it was first released, that's a good way to do it. Just at least to check it out and see it that way. But it's not a film where it's not something like where I would say House of Wax. Again, House of Wax is my up here, everything is House of Wax. Everything else at this point, where House of Wax, that you need to see that in 3D. That's just, it's done so well. Everything about it is great in the 3D. Creature from the Black Lagoon, it's just there, and I think it's also a time when 3D films, that first surge wave of 3D is starting to diminish. And I think they mentioned too on the documentary, special feature about the Creature, that by the time they got Revenge of the Creature, that was kind of like a last test to see if they could still give 3D a go, because it was starting to die out. And of course, at this time, they're competing with television. Television is a brand new thing. People don't have to go to the movies to have entertainment. They can stay home and watch whatever in the little bitty boxes. That's one of the reasons why at this time you have films opening up their scope and getting to a wider scene, because you can't get that at home. It has to be in the theater to see this. So again, that would explain why Creature is shot in that aspect ratio, even though I didn't think it was that time. It was kind of early. So that's, again, why I think that the film was shot in 3D. Not that you're really doing anything different with it, but basically as a way to let's get people into the theaters to see these films, because they're staying home and not wanting to come and spend their money like they used to. Which is always a running gimmick, a running reason for the gimmick by most distributors or whatever when it comes to the 3D. It's how do we get people to spend more money and whatnot. Things never change. So as far as this set, this set is pretty much universal with every release you're going to get, and that's that. At least with the Creature on the Black Lagoon. And this, like I said, this one here includes Revenge of the Creature and The Creature Walks Among Us, as is the previous DVD set. On the special features, you have Back to the Black Lagoon documentary, which is hosted by Richard Scull. Richard J. Scull, I think his name is. Or is it David Scull? David Scull. I think it's David Scull. He's a regular historian. You'll see on these Universal's documentaries Rudy Beimler. These two, David, yeah, or host. They're on here on almost every one of these Universal films, talking about the history of the film, the legacy, and they're always very good little. They're only probably about 20 minutes long at that, and they're very insightful and very good. And you have a lot of interviews with people who were involved in the film. Sometimes they have, these are old enough documentaries. Like I said, they're what would you call archival, I guess, at this point, but they have interviews with people who are obviously no longer with us, but they see their, talk about the films that they were in. It's pretty cool. I always enjoy that. You also have 3 feature commentaries on here, photographs, trailers, and there's like a, Universal 100 anniversary, talked about it a lot. And of course you have the option for the 3D and 2D versions for the first 2 films. Now, like I said, all this stuff is the same if you get the 4K of Creature of Black Lagoon by itself. But that's only going to include the first film, but you'll have all the special features because that's all in the Creature from the Black Lagoon disc on here. Whereas, if I can spin it around, maybe, you see Revenge and Creature Walks Among Us is on a disc by itself. But this disc will be available, in 4K. It'll have all special features. So if you want to get that as a standalone and not worry about this, then you can do that. But me, again, I like having the legacy. I love having this whole collection of these films. And this is a great set. This set, if you don't have any of the films, let me just say that this is a good set to have. I mean, it goes on sale on Amazon occasionally from time to time. I'm pretty sure it's still available. Just keep an eye out for it. And again, you got 30 films on here, and you see the legacy. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera, Creature from Black Lagoon. What am I missing? The Mummy. So, and it's just all these films on this. I mean, the original DVD legacies I had were great, but there were some films they didn't include. Now, the downside of this, if you were to get this set, is that a lot of films repeat, unfortunately. And that's because of the nature of what they have, like, the Frankenstein and Dracula sets will repeat because you have the House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula on both those. So essentially you have 4 versions, not 4 versions, but that film 4 times on 2 sets. I think it may even be on I don't know if it's on the Wolfman or not, but, so there's some of these films will double. And that's because at the time those sets were sold individually, not in a set here, but it's still cool to have, even if some of them are doubled up. Anyway, so that's my thoughts and a couple other ramblings on the 3D Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like I said, it's a classic of Universal horror. It's one of their monsters. Like I said, the last great Universal monster of that time, that era, during a kind of bridging gap of the old horror gothic monsters getting ready to go into that atomic space age of sci-fi horror that we were gonna get, which kind of started with It Came from Outer Space, and that's what we're starting to transition into. But actually, it's a classic. The 3D, not necessary. You don't have to watch it in a 3D. I recommend it only for the fact that that's how it was originally shown. So I think you should see it that way at least once. If you're going to watch it again, you can watch it in 2D. You're not going to miss anything. Nothing's really standing out, which is a shame. But, it's still a good movie. It's still a fun movie. So yeah, I highly recommend it. And I'm still looking forward to checking out Revenge of the Creature and see if that 3D improves or it's more of the same as especially since it's toward the end of that, first golden age of 3D, if you will. So that is it for this. If you enjoyed it, click thumbs up, share, subscribe, leave me a comment below. Let me know if if you've seen the 3D version of Creature from Black Lagoon, what your thoughts on it, or any of the Universal monsters, or if you picked up this set, or if you're just going to get that, if you've got that. I think there's a 4K set of these movies, but again, they don't have every one of the films that are on this set. That's why I've kind of not gone after that. Or just say hi. I'll always take hi. So until next time, Mr. Chuck saying I will see you on the other side.